Alright guys, so back with another video. This one's going to not relate to the usual review material, but more so on like flipping. Personally, my interpretation of it, just because I get a lot of questions about it in the comments. So yeah, so basically, also real quick to note, the collection has changed. As you can see, this is basically it. I'm not gonna like do too much with this because it's live blade. I don't want YouTube to go ham, but shorty Kraken, it's really good. Best Kraken I've ever flipped. Would recommend. All right. So anyway, how do I interpret flipping? So I think from just I wouldn't call myself like a good flipper by any means. I think I still I'm pretty washed. I don't flip as much as I used to because of school and all that. But I will say that I've been around long enough, I think, to just have my interpretation of how people flip and what becomes and what makes good flippers essentially. So, and it kind of comes down to two things, in my opinion, which is your ability to innovate on the fundamental tricks that already exist and create new tricks or ideas. And the idea of creating new tricks is a little bit you can debate that, because I can do something that is considered new, but is really just a very complex combination of tricks that already exist. So I think relatively the movements are all they all exist. They've all been done to some capacity. And so to say that you're really innovating or creating a new trick is difficult. And so, but for naming's sake, innovative tricks can be anything where the combinations of the tricks are so complicated that it'd be easier to call a new name. So for example, the Murnax ladder, which I can't really do, is really just it's him just doing multiple ladders that climb up your fingers. And you could just call it oh, I'm just doing pinky to ring or ring to middle, but that's too complicated. So you call it the Murnax ladder, named after the goat himself. And that's what made Murnax great, because he was innovating on a lot of tricks. This is my favorite opening from one of his posts. Let me see if I can try to do it. Oh my god. I'm definitely feeling more of the Kraken today, but I don't want to risk it. But yeah, so Murnax was able to sort of create his own style of flipping to the point where he was able to name it after himself. And then it became widely accepted in the community. So that I would call innovating to an extent. Then there's also just getting good at the fundamentals. And so that kind of just goes back to what are the fundamentals, because there are all these different styles to flipping. There's tech flipping, and then there's I don't know. Tech flipping is the only category you can really put stuff in. I think it's the most concrete category outside of just normal flipping. But mastering of the fundamentals is almost like being able to hit every trick and do it very smoothly. And that's where flow comes in a lot of the time, where you're just doing tricks and you're just doing them super cleanly. Not what I'm doing, by the way. And so the idea that you're just handling the fundamentals really well can be seen in a lot of advanced flippers. Maybe not top of the line flippers, because I think that you need to be more on the innovative side to be to be the best of the best. But mastering the fundamentals and just knowing how to do a lot of things is pretty key to becoming an advanced flipper. But at the same time, how you acquire that is somewhat difficult, because YouTube tutorials aren't always the best way to actually learn tricks past a certain point. Oh. This room has automatic lights. So, for example, like a lot of people will crap on a lot of advanced flippers, really, which I feel is a little bit unfair, but big flips, the guy who makes the orange thumbnail videos, people will be like, oh, his scaling is off from like advanced to like beginner, and even the definition of what makes a trick intermediate advanced is somewhat skewed, and it depends on the person who's doing it and the interpreter. But most of the time, while his tricks are great, and I think that he's fundamental to understanding, like he would teach you how to do like a chaplain or something, right? Or how to like open the Balisong. But he can't teach you how to chain the tricks in a way that is unique. It can create flow. That's something you have to learn on your own, and that's what I think makes flipping fun. But ultimately, that is a big part of that mastering of the fundamentals. So much to the point where you realize everything is kind of based around like a certain set of movements. And so you can almost learn through visualization. Because most flippers, or advanced ones, I think, probably either learn by asking directly from like the people who are doing specific tricks, or they just learn it themselves, which I think is the majority of them. Because very rarely do you see flippers like going and being like, oh, like, how do you guys do this? How do you guys do that? They just kind of just do it. And by doing it yourself and by learning it yourself, you invent new ways of interpreting that trick. And depending on how far you go in your interpretation, you can make it your own style. So, I don't know. I don't think I'm as flowy as I used to be. Mostly because I've sort of switched up how I think I flip. Just because how I used to flip I thought was kind of boring. Just because, I've done it for so long. But, I'll occasionally hit the same tricks. Like, I would say if I had to stack it, like my main go-tos are always fixed ladders. And then just like roll over base tricks, which is super vague. But like chaplains, or what do you call it, chatters, and then whatever this is, hold on, those appeal to me the most. But then of course, right, I'll occasionally try to hit, oh, that was terrible, double scissors or something, or like some weird spinny shit that I'm doing now. This is kind of like spice things up. But when it comes to my own flipping, that's sort of how I think of it. I used to think of it as like a rotational sense, whereas when you're flipping, you want to keep it omnidirectional, just because it's like, it's easier when you're like viewing it. It makes more sense that way. So like, for example, I'm like constantly rotating it left to right, and I'm barely doing any like ricochets. So I actually like don't like doing ricochets at all. I think I do it more than I used to, but I never go like that and then like, well, I feel like that is kind of, I'll never go like that and then that and then like something like that. Something super like static and like, I don't know what to call it. Just not fluid in a way that's like one directional. Is how I used to flip for a lot of my videos. And also because that just was easiest to me, and I think is the most pleasurable to see as like someone who's viewing something, because I feel like it's harder for people to see sort of this like weird flow thing where you're like, especially like a lot of like tech where it's like, I don't know how to even say it, but yeah, anyway, to the TLDR is like, I kind of viewed my flow as a omnidirectional point, and so that was kind of how I viewed flipping. But I think in the end, like, so that's my interpretation of flipping, and I'd arguably say like, I don't know, I don't think I'm that good. Again, I think that you need, in order to be a good flipper, to be a creative flipper, I think is a better term, because people value creativity more than they value, like, I think technical skill. Because if you do something that's extremely, like, technically impressive, I think that's awesome. But you won't get, like, a lot of people going like, wow, like, that's amazing. Because a lot of the highly technical things that you can do on very fundamental tricks can be easily achieved by anyone, and it's easy to imagine. Whereas if I do something crazy, like, I don't even know, like, I can't do anything that would be mind-boggling. But when you do something crazy that's completely out of the ordinary and that's more innovative, it might not be as technically difficult as, say, some, like, really basic and commonplace tricks. But if it's innovative enough, it'll probably get more popular than something that is immensely more technical, just from what I've seen. And yeah, that's sort of how I interpret flipping and aspects on how to become a creative flipper. And thanks.